Good day, students. Welcome to Mathgotserved.com. In this clip, we're going to be going over section 5.4b of our virtual geometry text. We're going to be looking at isosceles triangles in this presentation. We're going to be solving problems involving the base, opposite, and leg angle problems. So for example, take a look at the type of problem we're going to be solving in this tutorial. Solve for the value of x presented in this isosceles trapezoid. So we have two opposite angles. One is given, one is unknown, and this is the formula that we're going to be using to solve it. Don't forget, we have 6 practice problems at the end of this tutorial for you to try out to demonstrate mastery of the contents of this presentation. So if this is what you're looking for, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And to gain access to the entire geometry course, Algebra 1, 2, Pre-Calc, and Calculus, just take a look in the links in the description below. To get us started, we're going to be taking a look at a specific property of isosceles trapezoid that we'll be using for our problem solving process. This is our website, mathgotserved.com/geometry. Let's go ahead and take a look at that property. We're just going to scroll down to the must know vocab section. We're taking a look at isosceles trapezoid, formula number or vocab number 25. Alright, so just in case you don't know, an isosceles trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides called the bases and congruent legs. A trapezoid does not necessarily have to be isosceles. The legs could be of different measures, but in the particular case where the legs are congruent in measure, that makes it an isosceles trapezoid. An isosceles trapezoid, just like an isosceles triangle, is a special case of a trapezoid, just as an isosceles triangle is a special case of all triangles. The particular property we're going to be looking at for an isosceles trapezoid has to do with the relationship between the base angles, the leg angles, and the opposite angles. All right. So what you have to keep in mind, first of all, is that base angles of isosceles trapezoids are congruent. All right. So angle B and C are congruent, angle A and D are congruent. And then opposite or leg angles are supplementary. Remember what supplementary means. It means it adds up to 180. So angle C and D are supplementary. Angle B and A are supplementary since they're leg angles. And then opposite angles B and D are supplementary. And opposite angles A and C are supplementary also. Okay? All right, let's take a look at some practice problems for question number 1. We're to find x. So let's find x in trapezoid A, B, C, D. All right. So just to show that it's a trapezoid, we know that it has exactly one pair of parallel sides and the legs are congruent. So something to keep in mind is that all the figures, all the quadrilaterals we are going to be presenting in this presentation, they are all isosceles trapezoids, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, so number 1, we want to find x. So first of all, let's describe the relationship between angle A and C, okay? So the angles that we're given and the one that we're finding, angles A and C, angles A and C are opposite angles. So what do we know about opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid? Opposite angles of isosceles trapezoids are supplementary. Okay, so let's write that down. Opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid are supplementary. What does that mean? They add up to 180. Okay, so what formula can we write down given this information? The formula we can write down is that the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle C is equal to 180 degrees. Okay, let's go ahead and substitute. The measure of angle A is x plus the measure of angle C is 107. If we add these two together, we are going to end up with 180 degrees. All right, so to solve this resulting algebraic equation, we're simply going to subtract 107 from both sides of the equation, and that will result in the final answer for x. So if we subtract 107 from both sides of our equation, we're going to have x is equal to, so just bear 1 here, 10 minus 3. 10 minus 7 is 3. And then we have 73 degrees. That is what x is. X is 73 degrees. All right, let's take a look at question number 2. So in question number 2, we also want to find x in trapezoid P, isosceles trapezoid PQRS. Okay, so these are the legs. The legs are congruent, and this is a trapezoid, so we have the bases are parallel. So let's say angle P is 95 degrees and angle Q is x. So what is x? First of all, what's the relationship between these two angles? These are leg angles for the trapezoid. Okay, so angle Q and angle P are leg angles of an isosceles trapezoid. What do we know about the leg angles of an isosceles trapezoid? The leg angles of an isosceles trapezoid are supplementary, just like the opposite angles. Okay, so let's write that down. Leg angles of an isosceles trapezoid are supplementary. So what equation can we write? We can write the following equation: the measure of angle Q plus the measure of angle P is equal to 180 degrees. So let's go ahead and substitute. Measure of angle Q is x. X plus measure of angle P, 95, is equal to 180. Now to get x by itself, we're simply just going to subtract 95 from both sides of the equation, and that will result in the isolation of x, the solved state of our equation. Okay, so we're going to have x equals 180 minus 95 is 85 degrees. So basically that is the value of x in this isosceles trapezoid. All right, moving along, let's take a look at question number 3. So we're still finding x. So question 3, let's find x in trapezoid A, B, C, D. All right, so the legs are congruent and bases are parallel. We have an isosceles trapezoid. So let's say angle B is 113 and angle D is 6x plus 25. Okay, so what do we know concerning these two angles that are given? Ladies and gentlemen, these two angles are opposite angles of the trapezoid. So let's write it down. Angle B and angle D are opposite angles. What do you know about opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid? Let's write it down. Opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry, a supplementary, not congruent. They are supplementary. It's base angles that are congruent. Okay, so opposite angles are supplementary. So what can we write concerning this particular problem? What formula can we write? Well, since opposite angles are supplementary, we can write down the following equation. The measure of, let's write the one that has a variable first, okay? Measure of angle D plus measure of angle B. Opposite angles are supplementary, means they add up to 180, okay? So we substitute measure of angle D is 6x plus 25 plus measure of angle B, which is 113, Add that together, we have 180 degrees. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve this resulting algebraic equation. Combine like terms, 25 and 113 are constants on the left side. So let's combine the constant terms. Add these together. You have 138 equals 180. Now, to get x isolated is a two-step process. We're going to subtract 138 and then divide by 6. So subtract 138 from both sides. Subtract 138. Subtract 138. If we carry out that subtraction, we'll have 6x is equal to 10 minus 8 is 2. 7 minus 3 is 4. To finish this off, we'll just divide both sides by 6. That will result in the isolation of x. So divide both sides by 6. So that will give us our final answer. X is equal to 7. Alrighty, so that's the final answer for problem 3. Alright, let's take a look at question number 4. So for question 4, we're doing the same thing. We're solving for x. So let's find x. How do you find x in this particular isosceles trapezoid? Let's see, this is PQRS. The legs are congruent and the bases are parallel. That's what an isosceles trapezoid is. So let's say that angle Q is 25x minus 12 and angle R is 113 degrees. Alright, so what do we know about the relationship between these two angles? Angle Q and angle R are base angles. Okay, they're base angles of this isosceles trapezoid. What do we know about base angles of an isosceles trapezoid? Let's go ahead and write down what we know about it. Base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Alrighty, so base angles of isosceles. Oh, that's not spelling. Let me spell it properly. Of isosceles trapezoids are congruent. Okay, so these two are base angles, and these two right here, they're base angles. So you have two pairs of base angles for an isosceles trapezoid, and both pairs are congruent. Okay, so the equation that we can write with this information is as follows. We can write that measure of angle Q is equal to measure of angle R. So if we substitute, we have 25x minus 12 is equal to 113. Now to get x isolated, this is a two-step algebraic equation. We're going to add 12 to both sides of the equation. If we do that, what's that going to give us? We are going to have 25x is equal to 3 plus 2 is 5, 1 plus 1 is 2, 125. To finish this off, we just simply divide both sides by 25, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Divide this by 25, divide that by 25, and our final answer, x, is equal to 5. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the value of x in question number 4. All right, let's do one more practice problem, and then we're going to give you 6 to try out to demonstrate mastery of this tutorial. So for this one, let's find the measure of an angle, okay? Let's find the measure of angle A. So let's say this is A, B, C, D, okay? And then the measure of angle B is 3x plus 120. And then the measure of angle D is 4x plus 60. And of course, this is an isosceles trapezoid. The legs are congruent and the bases are parallel. Okay, so we're looking for the measure of angle A. It's going to be a multi-step process for this one. So let's outline what the steps are. Alrighty, so steps are as follows. First of all, we need to find what x is. Alright, so find x. And then after we're done finding x, we need to find the measure of angle D. Well, why are we looking for the measure of angle D? Because if we know the measure of angle D, we just automatically know the measure of angle A because they're both base angles, okay? So we're going to use what we got from 2 to find the measure of angle A since they're base angles. All right, so let's start with part 1. What's the relationship between these two angles? Angle B and D, angle B and angle D are opposite angles. What do we know about opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid? Let's write that down. Opposite angles of isosceles trapezoids are supplementary, just like the leg angles. Okay, so with that in mind, we can write down the equation: measure of angle B plus measure of angle D is equal to 180. So we carry out a substitution here. Measure of angle B is 3x plus 120. And then measure of angle D is 4x plus 60. And that's equal to 180. Okay, on the left side, we'll have some simplification to do. We have to combine like terms. We have 3x and 4x. We combine them together. That's 7x. And then we have 120 and 60. If you combine 120 and 60, that's going to give you 180. Okay, so we have 180. All right, so to solve this problem, to finish this problem off, we just subtract 180 from both sides and divide by 7. All right, let's do that. So subtract 180, subtract 180. And that yields 7x is equal to 0. Divide both sides by 7. And your final answer, x, is equal to 0. Okay? That was the final answer for part 1. It's not the final answer for the problem. Part 2, we now have to find the measure of angle D. All right? How do we do that? We know that the measure of angle D is the expression 4x plus 60. And x, from our previous answer, is 0. All right, so the measure of angle D is going to be 4 times 0 plus 60. So we're going to simplify the right side using PEMDAS. Multiply before you add. 4 times 0 is 0 plus 60. The measure of angle D is 60 degrees. All right, almost there. So now let's find the measure of angle A. So what do we know about angle A and angle D? Angle A and angle D are base angles. Okay, so angle A and angle D are base angles. So what? They're base angles of an isosceles trapezoid. So basically this means that they are congruent. Base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Okay, so if the measure of angle D is equal to 60 degrees, then it automatically follows that the measure of angle A is also equal to 60 degrees. Okay, so I didn't write down the formula, so let me pull this down and write it down. So the formula that we can state in this particular case, since they're congruent, is that the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle D, since they're base angles. And then since D is 60, it automatically follows that A is 60 also. That's the answer to question number 5. Now it's your turn. Alrighty, so we have 6 practice problems for you to try out. For questions 1 to 4, you just to solve for x. And then in questions 5, you to find the measure of angle y. Okay, so let's label it. This VW XY. And then for number 6, you to find the measure of angle W. All right, go ahead and pause the video presentation at this time. We'd like you to try out these 6 problems. When you are done, initiate the playback to see what the correct answers are. Welcome back. Hopefully you had a chance to try out the practice problems. Let's take a look at what the solutions are. For number 1, the answer x is 112. For number 2, x is 82. For number 3, x is equal to 7. For number 4, x is equal to 3. I wrote 2. For number 5, the measure of angle y is 79 degrees. And then for number 6, the measure of angle w is 125 degrees. How well did you do in these practice problems? Let us know in the comment section below how well you did. If you have any questions, comments about these practice problems or what we went over in the presentation, just specify it in the comment section and we'll be glad to assist you. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this presentation. If you found the contents of this tutorial helpful in your studies of geometry, to give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share with your friends so they can also benefit. To gain access to a wide variety of resources, visit our website at mathgotserved.com/geometry. Thanks again for watching and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.